morning, everyone, and welcome to the final webinar for our Diploma of Management students and the final webinar for continuous improvement tonight. Obviously, over the last few months, Adam and I have been delivering a lot of webinar assistance support evenings and seminars and webinars. So tonight is actually the conclusion to all of the webinars, especially for our Diploma of Management students tonight. So obviously by the end of this evening's webinar, you will have pretty much access to all information and all webinars for all 8 of your units of competency for your Diploma of Management. Now last week we actually went through Section 2 and Section 3 of continuous improvement. And the week before that, we looked at Section 1. So you've already got 2 webinars uploaded into the portal, which Adam is highlighting now. And tonight we conclude with our assessment support workshop. And we go through the 3 last remaining assessments, as you can see down the bottom here. And that will obviously, once we've been through all of those, that will actually conclude all of our webinars on continuous improvement tonight. So a bit of a momentous occasion, I think, for us, Adam, in that we now have officially delivered all assessment workshop support webinars and also resource support webinars as well for all the students. So they've got a whole library of additional information and additional support via the webinar, and lots of talk time from you and I, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, look, it's fair to say that we haven't had towards the end of the sessions, especially when we haven't had a lot of students joining us in some of these sessions, and the reason is, as well as we all know, is that we sort of joined in halfway through your journey, I guess, if you like, through this program, and we have been really busy in the last couple of months to try and get all of this content out to you so that it was there for you. As a result of that, we've all been on different timelines, different time, we've been doing different things at different times, I guess you could say. So we're still expecting that students would be approaching us and contacting us if they've got further questions than what's been provided and what's available in the webinar series for them. And we've been obviously fielding questions from students in relation to the work that they're needing to produce, and continue to do that. So if you need any additional help, obviously this is what we're here for. These sessions are just there, obviously, to give you a bit of a guiding, as a bit of a guide, really, and to hopefully answer some of the frequently asked questions and the obvious sort of things. Not everything we pick up on. There's some things that we certainly miss, so you're always welcome to touch base with us, and we always love to hear how students are going as they progress in any case. So
Absolutely.
3 pretty straightforward assessment tasks. There's the first 2 are actually just like written questions. They're effectively extensions from your learning activities. So Alyssa, would you like me to read out the first assessment task, and then did you want to explain?
Yeah, let's go through them. I mean, let's have a read through some of the questions that are offered or are highlighted in Assessment 1 and Assessment 2. And I guess what we want to do is really spend a little bit more time tonight on that review of Assessment Task number 3, where we do require a considerably high level of essay or report from our students tonight. So, rather than focus our time on, some of the questions, we would really ideally like to focus on that last assessment task tonight. So, yeah, if you'd like to have a read through them, we can quickly kind of address them if that works. So yeah,
look, we'll just read through them, and if there's anything to mention, I mean, it's all stuff that we've really talked through last week. Actually, resource support session 2 for this subject was quite full of information on quality management and continuous improvement systems and tools that are available. We started talking about some tips for quality management as well. So we've given you the overview. Let's just go through task 1 and 2, and then we'll get stuck into number 3, which is mostly probably what tonight's session's about. So let's have a look at assessment task 1. 3 questions for students. I don't know why that keeps coming up, but we'll close that. First question: how can an organisation's continuous improvement processes be communicated to all stakeholders, and how can individuals and teams be encouraged and supported to embrace it? First question.
Okay. Yep.
Is there anything we should debrief on that first question? I guess really just 2 parts to that question. First, how could organizations' continuous improvements processes be communicated? So that first question is how do we communicate, and then the next part is how do we encourage individuals and teams to embrace it, really, to support it,
Yeah.
embrace it, those sorts of ideas. So as long as you cover both elements of that question, I guess there's not a lot we can talk about. There are variations on a theme of these questions as well from previous subjects too. So, Alyssa, anything you want to add to that first question?
No, I mean, I'm kind of looking now into the second question, and the first and the second question together, and obviously just that second question, which is having made a decision about what to do to improve an organisation's processes, what should you do to plan for the implementation of that change? Now, last week, I do recall we did have a very, very extensive conversation about the importance of communicating and the importance of change and implementation of that change when it came to team members. So we really went into quite a bit of depth and some really nice solid ideas about these first two questions, I think. So, hopefully if you have a quick review of that webinar that we did last week, which was really fun to do, and Adam and I did discuss a lot of different ideas and thought processes and areas for consideration too, which I think really nicely cover a couple of these questions here tonight, especially question 1 and 2.
Yeah, and look, the learning materials cover this stuff really well as well, of course. So
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely refer to the learning materials. For assessment task 1 and assessment task 2, you can sort of stay inside the parameters of what we've provided you. Assessment task 3, we're going to ask you to step outside of those parameters a little bit. Only broadly speaking, we'll talk about that shortly. So again, just use the learning materials to really aid and assist you in combination with the webinars, as Alyssa said. Question 3, explain the difference between feedback and feed-forward control.
Yep.
I believe the reference materials also referred, or the learning materials refer to this one as well. Is that correct, Alyssa?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, there's obviously it's a very simple question. It's asking you to tell us the difference between feedback and feed forward control. So just, without getting into too much depth, obviously what we want you to do is we want you to make sure you review your resource material and you just literally explain the difference between those two types of concepts. So again, quite straightforward, not too difficult.
Yeah.
And again, yeah, just make sure you have a review of your resource material just to explain those two different concepts, that's all.
I would be looking for probably about 300 to 500 words for this assessment. I think something like a good decent paragraph per each question is probably going to cut it. One sentence probably isn't enough unless it's just a absolutely beautiful sentence. A nice paragraph would probably cover it. So 300 to 500 words would be about a good guide to provide students on that one.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Assessment task
So
number
as
2.
you can see, yes.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the lovely assessment task number 2. So again, in task number 2, you'll notice that you've got 4 different questions here. Okay, and again, this is not, these are actually, questions that they're asking you to complete for us. Okay, so you've got that very first question there that says what processes might be used to ensure that team members are informed of outcomes of continuous improvement efforts, and why is this necessary, and how will this contribute towards further improvement? Okay, so there seems to be probably about 3 components to that particular question. So that first component, as Adam's highlighting now, is what processes might be used to ensure that team members are informed of outcomes of continuous efforts. The second part is why is this necessary, and the third part is how will this contribute towards further improvement.
Teamwork,
Okay?
Alyssa, that was beautiful.
Yeah. So again, just making sure that you're addressing the 3 different components of that question.
Yep, I think that's a pretty straightforward sort of question.
Yep, absolutely.
Now the second
I
one
think
is
question 2 is even.
well, the second one's a good chance to springboard into the third task as well. Really just want a nice explanation and a description of what continuous improvement is. I'd like a little bit more than a sentence on this one as well. So, and we would certainly like to see other words used other than what's provided in the question, if you like. So, don't say the word continually improving as your explanation for continuous improvement is what I'm trying to get at there. So yeah, look, again, a nice paragraph. I would have thought 100 words at least for that question would be as sort of a minimum sort of reach. Anything you want to add to question 2?
No, I mean, I just think, rather than kind of reiterating a very formalized approach to what is continuous improvement, it's good to use the resources, as you said. But, we have talked a lot about different ideas and concepts, and we've talked a lot about what continuous improvement is. So it would be really nice to see your interpretation, obviously with association to some of the theories and thought processes around it, but just to see that you have kind of ingested it and kind of processed a little bit, and you kind of make it your own so that you have a really good practical understanding of what continuous improvement is as well.
Yeah, and we're just up after a holistic answer for that one. I think as we progress through here, we ask for a little bit more detail in any case. So, question 3, what can you do to support improvements now and into the future?
Yep, absolutely.
So what
And
sort
I
of
guess,
mechanisms are, I guess the question sort of is asking, what sort of things, what sort of mechanisms can you put in place to make sure that those continuous improvement processes are, embraced and supported well, and everybody's engaged in them basically. So
yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with your overview of that particular question. Again, really nice questions that are kind of getting you to think about, an overview of all the things and all the concepts and ideas in continuous improvement prior to the big assessment that sits as assessment task number 3.
yep, and I'm happy to see elements of leadership through this as well, because I think leadership is a really, really strong component of continual improvement. So, if what you can do to support continuous improvement now and in the future, well, if you want to refer to elements of leadership as far as, personal qualities that are required to help you with that mission, if you like, awesome. So it doesn't just have to be physical things to do, but it could also be just, personal qualities to use and embrace to enable that to happen, so to speak.
Yeah, which is nice. Yeah, that's an awesome idea.
Question 4, explain how each of the following can be incorporated into a business or into business systems. So continuous improvement models. So what you're going to need to do is have a bit of a look. Now, we started talking about a few different things in our webinar. We talked about some quality systems and different models that were out there. I think we only really I think when we talked about them, I think actually you talked about Kaizen, but I think we briefly discussed some of the others that exist out there, Lean, just in time, some of
Yep,
those.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep,
I would for this, guys, do a bit of research on quality management. These are 4 different areas here that we're looking at, I guess. So what we're wanting you to do is just to make an example of or refer to what each of those elements are, and then explain how that you can actually incorporate that into the business. So I think where students may have gotten wrong, or not wrong, but they've done a really good job in explaining or showing an example of what a knowledge management system is versus a quality system, for example. But what we're really after here is how you can actually incorporate that idea or those systems,
yep.
those ways of,
Into
into the
yeah,
business.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly right.
But you
So
may
yeah,
need
as
to,
you mentioned,
I was going to say, sorry, just
yeah,
to cut you off there, Alyssa, but the guys may
no,
need to draw some examples to be able to assist them with that still. So even though it
yeah,
just says how to integrate it, they still may need to draw a few examples to say, here's a couple of examples of a continuous improvement model, the way to engage or to integrate this or to incorporate this into business activities as as follows. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, you're right. It's not enough to just describe each of the systems and the ideas. What it is we need to see the processes as to how you actually incorporate it into business. So don't forget. I mean, it's great to describe them and discuss them and whatnot, but just make sure you've got that. You've showed us how you incorporate it, and I think using examples is a good starting point if you're kind of not sure. It'll kind of take you in the right direction.
yeah, so look, you'll absolutely need to have examples and an understanding and the definition of each of those terms. I would hope that you would by this point in any case, but it's something that you can always go back and have a look at, and you can do some further research on those areas. Just generally discuss those areas. Yeah, an example's great, and then that'll make the actual answering of the question in terms of how to integrate it seem a lot easier.
Yep. Yep. Perfect. Good. But don't forget to address all 4 areas as well. So don't decide that you really like continuous improvement models and quality systems and forget about knowledge management systems and sustainability principles. Just make sure you answer all the 4 elements of that particular question.
Yep, perfect.
Lovely. What are you thinking in terms of words for these types of things? Because I know that question 4 might be a bit of might require a little bit of detail in there, Adam.
Yeah,
So,
probably a little bit more
um,
than the last one. So what I think I said about 100 words for each of the
yeah,
three questions last time. I mean, it's probably more likely 500 to 700 words this one. The other one was probably 3 to 500 words. So
yep, yep.
I think if you've got less than 500 words, you might be dancing on a fine line, depending on how packed full of quality, I guess, those responses are. Um, we're really just hoping that you're able to answer each question, so there's no real word count here, but just as a guide, I think, I think 500 is the minimum on this would be the what you'd be wanting to aim for, I would have thought.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. I agree, absolutely. Yep, perfect.
Love it. Love it when we both agree to. I'm going to flick over to assessment task 3. Would you like me to read through this, and then what we might do is just then break it down, and talk about what the different elements that we're looking for as
Yeah.
assessors are, and then we'll talk about some of the other concepts that need to be talked about,
Yep,
provide a
sounds
little
great.
bit of a background to that. So I might read through this, and then what
Okay.
I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a spare or an empty Word document because we're looking at my screen now. And between us, what we'll do is we'll unpack what I've just read through, and we will just write up, what the different elements that we're going to be looking. So we'll be able to talk through that together. So assessment task number 3. This is the last one. This is the final one. Management students, this will no doubt be your very, very last submission for your qualification as well. So the task here is to write a 1,500 word paper or an essay style. We talk about essays and reports. This is an essay. So write a 1,500 word paper explaining what continuous improvement means in the context of organizational success. Explain how the concept can and should be applied. Explain how it is possible to lead continuous improvement systems and processes, and how opportunities for improvement can be managed to provide benefits for an organization. Outline how you, as an organizational leader, would contribute to and implement continuous improvement initiatives. Outline how you, as an organizational leader, would gather information about continuous improvement needs and would contribute to and implement continuous improvement initiatives. Consider also customer service and feedback from customers that might contribute to identification of improvement opportunities. Include references to the impact of change on individuals and groups within an organization, risk assessment, risk management techniques for successfully managing different types of change. What actions would you take to ensure the employees in the organization understood the need for improvement and were able to cope with the accompanying change? Use examples or scenarios to support your theories and demonstrate the need to effective continuous improvement processes. Tables, graphical diagrams, charts, statistical information can be included to help you explain and to support your work. You will need to utilize works by several authors to develop the basic ideas. The ideas presented in your paper will need to be logically sequenced, relevant to the topic, and should provide evidence of wider reading. Quotations and references should be correctly cited in the text with a complete reference list in alphabetical order. In brackets, the Harvard referencing system, which is supplied at the end. Statements should be justified, supported, and explained using evidence from writers who are considered to be authorities on the subject, using real examples, or by demonstration of your own ability to prove their validity. So there's a lot.
Well,
Yeah, no,
go.
it sounds like a lot when you read it out there. It's actually not such a whole lot, and so I think part of what we're going to do, and a lot of these things we've pretty much answered through all the learning activities and questions, and so this is just a putting it all together sort of a document. It's a 1,500 word document where you're effectively putting all the elements of continuous improvement together, and you're really showing how continuous improvement impacts on organizational success. That's really the core theme here. Um, the main thing, and this is what we'll get to before we actually break down what we're actually asking, the main thing or the new thing that we're discovering here is that we're asking you to use examples to support your theories, but the big kicker here is we're actually asking you to utilize work from several authors to develop your ideas. So, guys, this is really the first shot at a real academic piece that we're asking you to provide or to produce. And when it comes to academic pieces, and the way that it works in education in academia is if you say something, if you write something in an essay, if you write something and produce some works, that is presumed, unless you make reference to somebody else, that is your information, that is your works, that is your knowledge. So
Yep.
when we are doing academic pieces, so when we're talking about theories or we're talking about concepts, we need to, in this field, we need to bring in some other academics, or we need to bring in some other theories or some other authors that have worked in this field and talk about what they've been talking about, because they might have some ideas to help support our argument. They might be able to shed some certain light on the what on the area that we're referring to. Now, as I say, in academia, if we use the work of somebody else, we have to refer to it, and that's what we mean by referencing. We're referring to that person. Otherwise, it is considered to be what's called plagiarism, in that you're effectively taking somebody else's work. So somebody might have studied and done experiments and then published a report of all of their findings, and then you put an article together and you publish the article and you make no reference to the person that had researched and developed that content. You're effectively referring that their information is your own, which is plagiarism. So what we're asking you guys to do is and this is the first time, really produce an academic piece where we're asking you to draw on the concepts of continuous improvement and understand how, in fact, we'll actually break down these elements for you now. And once we've broken down these elements, I'm actually going to give you a bit of I'm going to show you how to do a reference. Using the Harvard system, I'll show you how to find information to help you with that. And I'll give you a demonstration on how to actually do we'll do one together. So we'll show you exactly what we're looking for, just to set the expectations. Well, actually, we'll come back to this. So what we'll do first is I'm going to set up. Alice, have you got this assessment open on your screen? Because I'm actually going to move off this screen right now.
Yeah, try and flick it back to me, and I will do my best to try and hopefully get it up on the screen.
I'll tell you what, instead of doing that, I'm going to just open up a spare document. You're going to read through. The students know what that assessment is. They can always look it up if they need it. You're going to just yell out and tell me what are the bits. I'm going to write these little bits in, and we just talk about these as the sections that we're effectively assessing on.
Sounds like a plan. All right, I'm just going to go into mine. All right, cool. So I guess what we want is there's a couple of different elements to this particular academic paper. So what we want to do, I guess the first thing is that we're looking at a specific word count, so it needs to be at least 1,500 words, okay? And the whole concept behind this particular paper would be you want to explain what continuous improvement means in the context of organisational success, okay? So essentially, what we want to do is the first element and the first area of the question really says explain how the concept can and should be applied. Okay, so what we want you to do is we want you to explain how the concept of continuous improvement can and should be applied within an organisation. Okay, now Adam, I'm not looking at your screen, I'm actually looking at my screen.
Yeah, no worries.
Moment, so yeah, I'm just assuming you're typing as we go.
I'm typing as well, and we will give you the opportunity to have a look and see what I've done here to see if it's on par.
Beautiful. Okay, so that's the very first part of that question, all right? So explain how the concept of continuous improvement can and should be applied in an organisation or in a business. Now, we have definitely addressed this, and you'll know that this is an area that we've also talked about in some of the other assessment activity questions. Now, the next part of that is explain how it is possible to lead continuous improvement systems and processes. Okay, So how do you drive continuous improvement systems and processes? How do you as a leader drive those systems and drive those processes? Adam, you mentioned before, you were talking about some of the qualities of leadership when it comes to continuous improvement. So, you know, it might be some elements from that perspective that you choose to draw on with regards to this. Now, the second part of that is how opportunities for improvement can be managed to provide benefits for an organisation. Okay.
Can you say that again?
So you've got so the second part of that is how opportunities for improvement can be managed to provide benefits for an organisation. Okay. So the first part of that area is, first of all, explain how it's possible to lead continuous improvement systems and processes. So how is it possible, or what qualities or what behaviours do you need to lead continuous improvement systems and processes, and how then these opportunities can be managed by you as a leader to be able to provide and reach benefits and outcomes for an organisation.
So I've written here how opportunities for improvement can be managed to provide benefits to an organisation.
Yep.
How is that different from the previous point in explaining how to drive continuous improvement systems?
Well, I'm looking at it from having leadership skills to maybe having management skills. I'm just thinking out loud.
So for this one, should we really be saying, are we asking how it can be managed, or are we asking what the benefit? Are we asking them to identify some benefits to using these processes?
I'm kind of looking at more from an operational perspective here. I'm just kind of looking, the first part of the question is what leadership qualities do you use to drive that continuous improvement? And then the second one is more, you know, what are you doing to manage the continuous improvement system so that you gain a benefit to the organisation? So I guess my brain is kind of thinking more on you know, the operational kind of aspect of continuous improvement opportunities, if that makes sense. So I guess operationally how you're what's the word I'm looking for, implementing what processes you're using to implement that opportunity to be able to provide benefit to an organisation. It's great that you can have great leadership skills and you can drive continuous improvement, but there's also that practical element to driving continuous improvement, is that the how-to, I guess. That's what I'm kind of thinking along that line. And the how-to, how does the how-to provide the benefit to the organisation?
Yep. Sounds good.
Does that kind of make sense?
It makes sense.
Yeah? All right. Okay, let me just.
Now keep going.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
I think so. We'll
now the last part of that particular.
Go for it.
Sure. I think what you're going to find is you're going to find a lot of these ideas and concepts do cross over a little bit. Now the next part of that assessment is actually saying outline how you, as an organisational leader, would contribute to and implement continuous improvement initiatives. So I guess it's about what qualities you have to be able to lead continuous improvement systems, how you lead that continuous improvement system so that it brings benefit to an organisation, and then how you contribute constantly and ongoing to making sure that you've created a culture that constantly has continuous improvement initiatives running through it. I'm kind of thinking of that process for that kind of area of the question.
So I've written here that you can't see is how might you bring these ideas into a business? Is sort of what I'm saying, is that's outline how you as a leader would contribute to. Well, that's more the initiation of a CI system, but yeah, again, like I guess the previous question that talked about how you're going to drive continuous improvement and how you're going to contribute to the implementation of it is similar again. So again, for this one, I'm mostly focused on how you'd actually, you know, how you're actually going to bring it in to really set up the culture of you know, of continuous improvement.
And I think that's the key there in this particular area, is really looking at the actual culture of continuous improvement itself. And, you know, we talked a lot last week in our webinar when we were talking about continuous improvement really being a part of an organisational culture, when we talked about, you know, Kaizen and all that type of thing. And I guess that's kind of what I would be looking for students to really kind of understand the importance of the cultural connection when it comes to successful continuous improvement systems.
Yeah, sounds good. Anything else that's on there, or is that really what we're asking the guys to do for this one?
No, there's a few more areas.
Okay, let's get through them.
All right, cool. So the next part is outline how you, as an organisational leader, would gather information about continuous improvement needs. So first of all, how do you as a leader gather information about the need for continuous improvement, and how would you contribute to and implement continuous improvement initiatives? So kind of that second part of the question seems to be repeating itself, but the first part of the question is kind of asking you to tell us and identify how you as a leader can gather information that there is a requirement there in the organisation for continuous improvement needs.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it does move on to say, consider also customer service and feedback from customers that might contribute to identification of improvement opportunities. So what they're actually saying in that assessment is that one of the ways you could gather information about the need for continuous improvement is through your customer service and your customer feedback. So I guess that's a really big part of identifying a need there, is what you get in terms of feedback from your internal customers and your external customers as well. So the question and the assessment's really asking you to make sure you include those pieces of data or those pieces of evidence to justify that continuous improvement need, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And that was it?
All right. Now the next part of the question is include reference to the impact of change on individuals and groups within an organisation. So I guess what we're talking about here is we're talking about you to make sure that you're kind of making reference and you're kind of noting what the impact of change has on individuals and groups within an organisation. It also does talk about here the impact of change on risk assessment, risk management, and techniques for successfully managing the different types of change. So I guess we're looking at the impact of change and how you can actually manage the different types of change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I might get you to flip back to my screen now.
Yep.
What I'm going to do
Yep.
is just show you what I've written up here for students, and tell me what you think of this, and see if this is effectively what Alyssa and I will effectively use as like a little marking guide, if you like. This is what we're going to be looking at when we're reviewing your word, and we're going to be checking to see, firstly, word count 1,500. I would say that's your minimum word count number, or that is your minimum word count number.
Yeah.
Now, normally in higher ed, as we've talked, they set we've said this before, they have maximum word count as well as a minimum. Alyssa, do you want to set a maximum word count on this one, or are you happy for students just to hit the minimum?
Yeah, look, I would be happy for students to make sure they covered
Just the minimum.
1,500 words.
Me too.
And if you're feeling like,
I think we
yeah,
haven't sort of we haven't pushed submissions back because they were too many words through this course. So I don't think we're going to start doing that now. But this is I guess just good information to know if you're going to be continuing study in any case. And this referencing is really to give you a bit of a helping hand as to be ready to progress to the next sort of stage of your own study. Yeah. So the first part, 1,500 words minimum. So what we're looking for is what is continuous improvement, just an understanding and maybe just how it can impact on organizational success. That's the first part. Explain how this concept can and should be applied in business. Again, you can just do that holistically, so as a general overview. Then we want to know how to explain how to lead systems and processes. How do you drive that continuous improvement? What I've put here, Alyssa, is personal qualities. So what we're asking is what are the leadership qualities, what are the personal leadership qualities that you need to drive that? The second question here is how opportunities for improvement can be managed. What we're saying here is what are your operational processes, what are your actions? So really between these two questions, what are the personal qualities and actions that you're going to use to drive and manage that continuous improvement? So it's almost a combo question. This one here, outline how you as a leader would contribute to the implementation and initiation of CI system, continuous improvement systems. What I've written here is how you might bring these ideas into a business, or how to set the culture of continuous improvement. We've already talked about how to drive it, once it's there. But this question I'm mostly sort of asking, or what we're looking for here, is how do you sort of set it up? How do you bring it in? How do you broach the subject to begin with? How do you bring it in and set the culture from the start? Um, and also how you might actually gather information, research about the need for continuous improvement, and also how you might share that with your organization. Uh,
Yep.
the last little
Yeah.
spot at the end said talking about consider customer service. You could do that in this spot here, really. So if you're talking about how you're going to gather information, or how you're going to be doing some research about the need for it, you might be talking to customers as one of your stakeholder groups to ask them how they're finding your service/product to give you a bit of a head start there. The other thing is that now what we're going to talk about for the next sort of 10-15 minutes is referencing. How to reference. What I'm looking for is a minimum of 3 references through your work, minimum of 2 authors through that. So if you find a really good reference, you might find 2 quotes that you want to use from that particular article or book or whatever it might be. That's fine. Minimum 2 authors. And what I'm looking for is a minimum of 1 in-text citation, a minimum of 1 direct quotation, which I'll explain to you right now. So what I'm going to do is I've put together some notes. We've asked you to do the Harvard referencing system, which I'm actually going to explain their system. Well, I'm not actually going to be able to explain their full system because referencing is quite a complicated and complex beast. With regards to finding more information about referencing, my suggestion for you guys is to put the word Harvard referencing or a guide, put the word guide into a Google search, and you'll see there's PDF files that come up. We are not allowed to necessarily advertise these or provide them directly to you, but if you guys do a direct search for them, you'll find them. There are some great PDFs there that give you a bit of a helping hand. There are even some generators you can use too to help you with that. Let's talk and walk you through how to do it. The only way, the explanations I'm going to provide, and then what we might try and do is see if we can do one together. Just as an example, Alyssa, I don't believe is familiar with the Harvard referencing system. So between yourself, Alyssa, and myself, what we can try and do is put
Yep.
our heads together and see if we can just draw up an example for students so that they're comfortable. We'll
Sure.
use this guide that I've
Yep.
got on the screen as a bit of a guide, but the only 2 different versions that I've explained in terms of referencing are websites and books, because
Mhm.
I really believe that for the most part students will probably be looking to those sources of information. So here we've got the information source category. Those are the sources of information. Now depending on the website, some websites have authors, some websites don't. Some books have 1 author, some books have multiple authors. So I'm going to show you both versions, or we're going to talk through those 2 different versions. And this, if you have a look at this screen, this is your guide here basically. So use this, or as I said, do a Google search, get information on the Harvard referencing system. Firstly, I'm going to just explain what I mean by an in-text and a direct quotation. So an in-text paraphrase is not a word for word quotation, but really you're taking their information and saying such and such says this. Not their words, but such and such suggests in their works that A, B, and C. Now, in this example here that I've got here, this is from a web page with an author. This is an in-text paraphrase. So differences of behavior between various species of frogs may affect the possibility of some species becoming extinct. Somebody has taken the work of Rowley from 2013 and paraphrased their ideas. This is their idea. The idea from Rowley was that differences of behavior between various species of frog may... Now, here is the same exact type of idea, but done as a direct quote. So in this situation, the actual student or whoever's researched this has actually taken the direct quotation from the book. So what actually Rowley said was how interspecific differences in behavior relate to vulnerable... Anyway, that's Rowley's words. if you're going to use word for word, you need to follow the direct quotation formula. If you're going to paraphrase, you need to use the in-text formula. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. So at the end of your work, you have a reference list. And the reference will look something like this. This is actually how a reference for a web page with an author will look. I've given you examples of how the web page without an author looks, as well as how a book with one author or a book with multiple authors might look. So I've given you those examples. The difference is in the middle of your text, how you do it. So if you are doing a quotation, you need to have these little quotation marks. You see these two little guys here? You need to insert those to show us where the actual quote starts and finishes. And you need to refer to the name and the year, but you only need to put the year in brackets. And the reason for that is if you're actually quoting, you actually need to actually mention that person's name in reference to that quote. So I might say, Rowley had a great idea when it came to, Rowley is one of Australia's biologists researching, and then say what he had to say, put the year in. If I'm paraphrasing, then I put the name and the year in the brackets. If I'm paraphrasing, I use the name and the year after the idea in brackets. If I'm using a quotation, I'll generally put the name outside of brackets, the year in brackets, and that can be either before or after that quote.
Mm-hmm.
And that's generally how it's going to look on the reference list. The thing about Harvard referencing is that your reference list needs to be in alphabetical order. It's not the order that it appears in your work. The Harvard system, and that's why we refer to the Harvard system, because there are many other systems there that have different methodologies. We're asking you to do this system so that we can keep it all as one. So yeah, you'll see here we've got the actual author's name, surname, and first initial, the year of the publication, the actual name of the web page or the works. That is the actual home of the web page. For example, so as you can see, there's the web page. jodyrowley.com is the actual web page. So that would also be the organizational name. So if I got that from here, here's an example. Here's a web page without an author. This is the name of the actual page. So in place, okay, let me just take it one step back. When you're quotating, when you're citing websites, if you have an author, you put them at the start with the year and the name of the work that's referred to. We'll show you these as examples soon. If you don't have the author's name, what you do is you put the name of the website or the page. So this is the name of the page. Cancer.net is actually the organization. Like Jody Rowley's the organization here, Cancer.net is actually the organization here. Home is actually the name of the work, as in the neuroendocrine tumor is the name of the work for this particular article. The thing about websites is you always have to put the date that you viewed it, and that's why, so follow these as guides. You'll always need to put the date that you viewed it. Websites change, a book doesn't, websites do. So you always have to put that, and then in these little side-by-side arrows, you actually put the URL. Now that's what we might do now is try and I'll actually open up a few web pages and show you. A really good website, guys, just for statistical data, if you're not aware of it, there's a fantastic website called ABS. It's the Australian Bureau of Statistics. If ever you're looking for some sort of statistical data or some numbers to help back up an argument, whatever your argument might be, come to this website. It's a fantastic source of data or information. Now, I might be trying to talk about the rate of unemployment and how I might say, according to the ABS March figures, there's been a rise of 1.6% in the employment trend between February 2015 and March 2015. I might put that in as my quote, if you like, and that would be a paraphrase because that's my words. I'm not actually picking up a quote off this page. I'm actually just paraphrasing the information that's there. So if I go back to my thing here, I would put that in as an in-text paraphrase. The author of this page, or the owner of this page, the organisation, is ABS, or the Australian Bureau of Statistics. That is the organisation, but it is not necessarily authored. For this one, I wouldn't know who the author was. I would just refer to the author as the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Some articles, like, let me see if I can, okay, here's an example of an article on a website. The website is MindTools, so that's the organisation, but the article is written by Heather Levin. So Heather becomes the author, and the organisation becomes MindTools. So now, the thing to note is it's all or often really difficult to discover the actual year. You see where we're asking you to come up with the year. This is actually the year of when that work was published. The second year here is the year that you've actually, the date relating to when you viewed it. That year can be really hard to find. Suggestions for finding it. A couple of things you can do. Scroll all the way down to the bottom of your web page. Sometimes it tells you when that page was updated last. The ABS are very good at giving you that information, so it's really easy to reference their material. So you can actually, so 2015, we know, if I was doing that example of talking about, the trend of unemployment between February 2015 and March 2015, I would actually refer to 2015 as the year that data was published, the publication date, if you like. Alyssa, as somebody who's sort of tuning in, just yell out if you would like, if you have any questions, if you think I'm.
Yeah, no, of course.
Gaps.
I think it's actually, I think you're explaining it with the reference of that previous document. I think it is actually, it is absolutely making sense, and I think you're making it extremely, very, very user-friendly when you're explaining it, Adam, so that's awesome.
So I would say that the ABS does not have an author because it's just the ABS. It's not an actual author like the other example I showed you there. So with that other example, let's just pull that one up. If I'm going to refer to small steps towards greater efficiency, if I want to refer to something that Heather has said, I might actually pick up a direct quote from Heather, and I might say, this is my quote, I'm going to grab that. To do the actual end reference, let's try and do one together for this. So this is going to be a web page with an author. So let's copy this because this is an example of what we need. So this is our web page. This is what we need. So here's an example. Let me just blow that up so students can see that nice and cleanly. Okay, so let's do a version ourselves. So firstly, we've got a surname and first initial. That's the author. So how do we start here? What have you got? What have we got? Who's the author here?
So the author's Heather Levin?
Exactly. Now Levin is the surname, so you always put the surname first, followed, and use the formatting that you see in front of you. So Levin dash H. We don't spell the first name out, we only put their first initial. Luckily for us, this article gives us a date. A lot of the time when you're using articles, there'll be a date on the actual article. Sometimes we have to scroll down to see when the website was this page was last updated. In this case, we know it's 2014, so we put the year 2014. We put a space and we put 2014. Now what's in italics is actually the name of the works. The name of the works is here. This is the name of the article. If I was using the ABS data, what I would probably say is the name of the article would be this actually. Labour Force Australia March 2015 March Key Figures. Sometimes, here's another trick, if you right click, and I'm using Firefox, if you view the page info, you can see the title up there as well. That's the name of the page, the way that the organisation, whoever owns that website, which is in this case is ABS, that's how they have referred the page. So that is actually the page title. So when you're using an article online, you can just use the article as the title, but when you don't have it's not an article with an author, but you're referring to a website, you can actually use that, right click to discover what the actual page title is, if you like. So, okay, so smaller steps to greater efficiency, that is actually our title, so we're going to feed that in. Now we're also going to put that in, woo, that came out big. Oh, another little trick for students, if you want things to be in the same format, highlight the format that you want, click Format Painter, as I just did then, and then select the area that you want to look the same way, and then there you go. Anyway, another little tip and trick. I'm going to put that in italics because that's the way it needs to be. Now I've got to put today's date because we've viewed it today. So viewed on the 21st of, what date is it? April. What year is it? Who am I? 2015.
2:15.
Now the last thing to do is to have these little guys and just stick the website in. I'm going to grab the website now. There's the website. And there is my reference right there. That's exactly what we're after. We want a minimum of 3 of these. We want a minimum of 2 authors. So if you like that work that Heather did and you can refer to 2 bits and pieces from her, that's fine. The thing to note here is if we are doing a quote, so if we take this work that she's done, put it in our assignment, word for word, we need to do this. We need to put these quotes here, these quotation marks around the actual quote, and we need to put the year as well after that quote. So we're saying this is the year. So and in and around that, we also have to talk about it. So we could say Heather Levin refers to the concept of whatever the concept of, and then we can talk about the quote, and at the end of that, we can drop in the year. That's what we're talking about, the in-text citation. So in your work, that's how you're going to deal with it inside your work. This goes down to the bottom of your project on your reference list. At the bottom, you'll have a reference list, and your reference list needs to be in alphabetical order. So if you have multiple references, they are ordered not by, and also remove those hyperlinks, they are ordered by the author's last name. Just really quickly, with books, if you're looking for information on books, my suggestion is to do, if you don't have the book and you can't find that information, to do a search, like you do an Amazon search. If I do a search for a book like this one, I can find Amazon will pop up somewhere, no doubt there it is. I'm going to open up Amazon and it's going to give me details about the publication, when it was published, who the authors are and things like that, who the publisher is, when it was published, that sort of jazz. So do a bit of a Google search if you don't have the actual book there. That sort of a thing. The only thing to note, if you're doing a book that is a 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th edition, you actually need to include that. You need to let us know which edition that is. So I see, oh no, it's actually not here. This book, this one here, or this one, The Magic of Reality, if this was a 3rd edition or 4th edition, you actually need to put that in between the title, which is in italics. That's the book, that's the name of the book. Firstly, that's the author's surname, that's the author's first initial, that's the date of when the work was published, that's the name of the book. Here we would put second 2ED if it's the 2nd edition. If it's the 7th edition, 7ED. If it's the 8th edition, 8ED. And the next thing that we see there, Black Swan, that's actually the publishing company, and that's the place of publication. So this one here, a book with 2 authors, the way you do it is you actually write the surname followed by a little comma. That comma is really important actually, followed by the first initial, and surname of the 2nd author, comma, first initial, and date. So when you're doing this, I would suggest I'm actually using you're gonna have to look for something like this online. I would grab the actual example in one of the guides and just do what I did here, check it off, just to see that all of the dots are in a row and things like that. Well, this is a website, so that's going to be a little bit different. But just make sure that you're getting it right. So if I wrote a book, I would actually do it like this. And the year that I wrote the book, How to Do Things is the name of my book. Of course, I would never have this in bold. And we're up to the third edition of How to Do Things, funnily enough. Didn't get it right the first couple of times. Actually, Alyssa, you and I co-authored this book. I totally forgot.
I love that. Yeah. Do you remember? Yeah.
You had some great ideas. So you see how it looks like it's a katana, but actually it's not. It is Suetoi, comma A. No
Yeah.
differentiation then between my first initial and your surname. Your surname, comma, first initial. Again, no differentiation between your first initial and then the date of the publication, comma, the actual title of the book in italics, the edition number, and then what are we going to put? We've got to put the actual publishing company and the place of publication. So who's the publisher?
So you. So,
Penguin Books got us. We got a good deal with Penguin Books out of London, and that's an example of how to do an actual. So if I was to put that in my reference list, I would actually put it there because that's alphabetical order. That's not the in-text citation, that's the reference list. So remember, when you're looking at this or you're looking at the guide, they give you how to actually do a in-text quotation for both
yeah.
paraphrases and direct quotations, and this is actually what it looks like at the bottom of your page on your reference list. Now there are so many different, if you're doing a newspaper, if you're doing a DVD, if you're doing an ebook, there are a million different information sources, is what I'm trying to say, and they all have their own rules of thumb or rules of referencing. For the most part, I'm happy to see, because I would presume you guys are going to stick to books and websites, so use these. Basically stick to what we're showing you here as just a bit of a practice pad to including a few academic references in your work. Alyssa, that's all I'm going to say on the matter today. Is
Yeah,
any other questions?
that I think is no. I think that's really going to help in clarifying that whole concept of referencing. I think, yeah, no, I definitely think that is extremely helpful, Adam, and you've explained it so well as well. So that's awesome. I think everybody, like, obviously, if you want a bit more information about referencing, I guess give Adam a call.
Yeah, you can too. But
obviously,
seriously, I'm going to show the guys how to get more information again. So Harvard referencing guide, I'm going to show them the website that I would suggest going to. So I'm not going to say it out loud, but if you scroll down, down, down. Oh, it's gone. Oh, I've lost it. Not sure where it went to. Sorry. This is the one I've been using. Guys, they're all the same. They're all from the Harvard University. That's where it's been developed. If you look at this guide, which is what I've been using, this is where I've pulled those examples from. So you can copy and paste examples straight off the PDF guide to help you with your formatting. But as you can see, these are the different information sources. There's heaps. There's heaps of different types of sources, and they all have their own methods. Only happy to see, a book or a website, because they are the main things that we want you guys to be versed in. The main concept here is really just understanding, I guess, that you need to reference other authors when you're referencing their intellectual property, which is their work, which is their research, and that's generally how it works with academia. And I think that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that was a great help, Adam. That was good.
Okay. Well, good luck to students. If you have any questions, come and see me, of course. Good luck with getting the last assessments completed in the last subject. Continuous improvement. It's been an absolute joy working with you guys. We'd love to hear how you guys are progressing. So keep us in the loop. Send Alyssa and I an email. We'd love to hear how things are progressing, either additional study or how your careers are developing. So definitely keep us in the loop. It's been a joy to work with you guys, and we hope that we've been able to provide some value to you along the way. And good luck with your future endeavours.
Absolutely, everybody. Yeah, good luck. And yeah, we look forward to hearing how you move on through careers. So yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
We'll see you on the flip side. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Good night.